Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring Robert Beaven. We hope you enjoy this conversation. Rob, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to this.
I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here and to also hear about all of your amazing feats that we will get onto shortly, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Before we kind of get into everything, would you mind just introducing yourself, please, and telling us how you came to have your stoma?
Yeah. So my name is Rob. I am from Gloucestershire. I am a chiropractor and I run a medical clinic in Cirencester. I had a stoma after having 10 years of ulcerative colitis, getting to the point where medication wasn't really working. I was offered the surgery a couple of years ago, didn't really feel ready then, and then revisited it a year ago, and basically decided to pull the plug when they offered me some different medications. I kind of thought, no, I've had enough now. So I went for the surgery.
So what was life like before your surgery? How many years had you been, I guess, suffering with ulcerative colitis? And I guess this wasn't an emergency surgery, so I'm really interested to hear how you came to make that decision, because a lot of people, I think, go back and forth on that.
So I suffered with it for 10 years. So I was diagnosed just after I graduated university, 2012, and I kind of started getting a bit ill and kind of took about 6 months to get a diagnosis. And then I kind of went through, probably the same as most people, a myriad of different medications, steroids. I felt fantastic on steroids. I'd add on another medication. I'd come off steroids and everything flared up again. And I went probably through 5 or 6 different immunosuppressants and biomeds and never really did anything. Some horrible side effects from steroids. And kind of thought basically enough was enough. And then, as I said, I was offered the surgery and I kind of thought, not quite sure yet. Maybe there's going to be another drug coming out on the market. And and then lockdown happened actually. So I couldn't have had it quicker than that, even if I wanted to. And then, my son's young, he's 3 now. So he was kind of 1 at the time when I was making these decisions. And I kind of just thought, am I going to do another round of steroids? Am I going to do another 2 weeks in hospital? What's going to be the trigger for me to do this? So I met with the surgeon after chatting with my consultant and just kind of said, what are my options? And he said, if I were you, this is what I would do. And I chatted to a couple of friends about it. I chatted to a couple of colleagues who I know have been in similar situations or who are on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, all of them had said, I wish I'd done it 10 years ago. And that kind of made the decision for me. It was thinking more about family and life out on the other side of it, what's possible.
And what has life been like since you had the surgery? So are you a year in? Is that right?
It was, and I'm 11 months, just shy of 10 months. So I had it very end of September last year. So I'm now one of those people that says, I wish I had it 10 years ago. And, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I think, where I had it was the right time. But, because you can't, as soon as you're diagnosed, say, I want to have some surgery for UC, it'd be a bit of a dramatic jump.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, I'm now that person that says I wish I had it 10 years ago. It's been a complete life changer, really, for the good.
In what kind of way?
I can leave the house, always a good start.
Always
so I can leave the house, always a plus. I was at the stage where I couldn't see my patients really. I run a business that I had 15, 20 staff members and I wasn't really there. I could only see patients for my own patients in the afternoon, so I wouldn't see anyone in the morning because I couldn't really function in the morning, couldn't really leave the house. None of my staff or patients really knew anything because I was just there in the afternoon. We just kind of used childcare as an excuse, and so I put on a bit of a front really, but I was just generally not very well. Weekends away, I wouldn't want to go anywhere in the morning. I couldn't go. Flights were always difficult, so we would book flights around times that I was well. So it impacted a lot of things which you wouldn't think about at all. And now I don't even think about it. For me to get up and go to work in the morning or for me to get on an early flight, I wouldn't even think about it now. But it's probably taken me 6 months to get out of that mental space to think of other options.
That's so amazing to hear. And I can so imagine that even if physically things have shifted, mentally to catch up to that shift must definitely be a bit of a delay.
Hugely. I mean, if you're so used to doing living one way and your whole life is dictated by another set of values which are completely, undefined by you. You had no choice over this. It's just, it controls it, so even my wife and the way that she would work would be dependent on me. So looking at flights, looking at holidays, we wouldn't have that conversation of, oh, do you think we could do this flight? It would just be, well, we're not going to be able to book that flight because it's 9 o'clock in the morning. We didn't even have that discussion. So it controlled everything. And I still probably now really appreciate the mornings a lot more. When you remove something and you can't do it, you really miss it. No one looks, what's the quote? No one looks weller than the well person to the sick. And it's so true. When you can't do something, you really appreciate it. And I remember thinking, oh, why doesn't everyone get up and go to the gym in the morning? People are, what's going on? Why are people not doing this? And when you can't do it, you really notice other people that don't. So I count myself very lucky now that I can.
It's really interesting that you just brought up the gym, because I actually wanted to ask you all about fitness and endurance, but I guess I'm going to launch right into why I want to ask you about all of these things. And it's about your 43-mile, is that correct, run in the Arctic Circle?
Yeah.
Can you tell me
So,
about this? This feels crazy.
so yeah. I actually did do one. I've never been a runner, and a couple of years ago, I wanted to do a bit of running, and I thought this is fun. I'm the type of person that I need a challenge. I need a motivation to kind of,
Mhm.
get me out of bed to go for a run. And I entered, what was it, a 30-mile ultra marathon kind of 5 years ago. And I trained for it. I really wasn't very well. So I kind of just struggled through a bit. It was a bit miserable. I didn't have a kid then, so I could be a lot more flexible around timings. And I couldn't do it to what I saw as the best of my ability. And then that kind of phased off again. I always wanted to, and that was always my goal, was if I was well, was to be able to do either an Ironman or a big ultra marathon or something like that. And
Mhm.
actually, a friend of mine who I'd done a lot of races and, we're on the same mental ilk, I guess, he came to visit me in hospital and said, oh, I've seen this race. We should do this one day. And I was still in hospital, kind of post surgery, doing a lap of the ward a day was about where I was at. And
Wow.
he, said, "Oh, I found this cool race in Norway." So it is called the Lofoten, which is the islands right at the very, very top of Norway. It's an archipelago right at the very top of Norway, and they have three events. They have a ski race, like a cross-country ski. They have an
Wow.
Ironman, and they have an ultra marathon, which is, well, I say ultra. They have everything from a 12-kilometer race up to a 100-mile race. So you could do any of that. And I thought that's a pretty good challenge to set myself
Yeah.
within 6 or 9 months or so post-op. So
Oh my God.
this was October last year, and the race was the 1st of June. So kind of thought, I've got 9 months to train and do this. And I thought that's a pretty good challenge. So basically we entered it whilst I was still in hospital, booked some flights, not even knowing that I could ever, I was still, holding a catheter bag, doing a lap of the ward when I booked this race. And that was it. So the actual race was, a very, very hilly lap around some island in Norway, and there was a lot of mountains. There was snow. It was 2 degrees, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Yeah, it was brilliant. And so to do it pretty soon after surgery was pretty amazing. It was fantastic.
That is so incredible and such an amazing achievement, and really inspiring to know that so soon after surgery you were able to do that.
Hmm.
What was your fitness like before your surgery? Did you already have a kind of baseline that you worked on, or did you really have to start from scratch?
I'd say I probably started from scratch. The kind of three
Wow.
months build up to surgery, I was pretty unwell. I would say probably average, not that really says a lot for our UK population, but I was going to the gym a little bit here and there. I was walking. I wasn't kind of housebound, and I was still working, so I was able to, stand up and go for a walk. I probably wouldn't have gone for a run. It always irritated my stomach a bit, but I was gymming a bit here and there, but I wasn't running marathons, anywhere near that, really.
So what did your training program look like, and how quickly after surgery did you start?
So I left, I was in hospital for 10 days, and I was discharged on a Saturday morning. And that day, a load of friends went for a dog walk, and I was like, I'm going to come for a dog walk. And we walked in Cirencester. There's a big park with a huge long strip in it. And I was like, cool, in my head, I'm going to see this as my first training session. Let's go for a bit of a walk. And we
Mhm.
did a 5 kilometer, like really slow, like walking. Everyone else was running around with the dogs. I remember walking along, kind of, holding onto the pushchair because I could lean against it, thinking, oh, I can't stand up straight because my stomach hurts a bit. just kind of walking along thinking, and I used that as my first uh, training session, if you will. I basically saw walking as my initial plan. How can we walk? And let's get some time on feet was kind of my adage, because a lot of these ultra marathons, a lot of the big uphills and, kind of the harder bits, you will walk them. Very rarely, I mean, the winners will run absolutely everything, but a lot of the ups, a lot of the steep ups in Norway, they were unrunnable. It was kind of more scrambling up rocks than actually running. So
Mm.
my focus was just around time on feet and getting out there. And then that daily walk, I'd then start taking the dog out, and I would start then putting on some running gear and going for a bit of a walk. I can't remember the exact date of my first jog. I think I went to the gym actually to run on a treadmill because I thought that's probably a safer place. I think was the first one. It was probably about 6 weeks, 2 months, something along those lines. And I
Wow.
thought I was going to do a real slow kind of one foot in front of the other, just walk and then a couple of minutes of jogging and then walk for a bit. A bit like a walk run or a couch to a 5K type approach.
Yeah.
The same approach I would do with any patients now who are coming back from a knee replacement or something like that, is do a 2-minute walk and a 30-second jog and just tweak the dials on those metrics over the course of weeks and months. And then that became, I remember doing my first 10K run kind of November time and thinking, I've done a 10K run. And everyone was like, I can't believe you're doing a 10K run. You only had surgery 2 months ago. And I was like, but I feel okay. And I think that for me was the hard thing. Everyone was saying kind of do less, recover, that sort of thing. And I would say I was tired and I definitely didn't feel very fit, but I
Mm.
wasn't in pain. And I was very lucky because a lot of people have had a lot of problems after surgery. So I count myself very fortunate in that. And I saw that as a benefit. So I thought, whilst I'm well and I feel okay, I'm gonna carry on. And so training programs, I kind of ran 2 or 3 times a week, did some gym stuff, and just gradually tweaked the dial on distance and time. Went up, did some training around Penny Fan and around the mountains and the Wrekin Beacons, just to kind of simulate some terrain, and just kind of tweaked it. So I've got a very forgiving wife and a thankful son for letting me letting me go off and run around mountains at the weekend.
Absolutely. You touched upon your practice. So you are a chiropractor, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a
How
chiropractor, yes.
how do you think the training that you've gone through to kind of become a chiropractor, and also I guess the practice and the people, your patients that you've seen, how do you think that impacted on your recovery, if it did?
Very much so. I mean, my background as a chiropractor, I see a lot more now of kind of sports injury rehab. That's kind of my main area of interest. So it's that people post-surgery and, hip and knee replacements. And that's the kind of area I've fallen more into. So I think my understanding of the body is going to be better than the average person walking around on the street having the same surgery.
Mm.
My understanding of operative pain, exercise pain, what's normal, what's not, I think was pretty good. A lot of things you'll see post surgery is a lot of kind of referred pain. You get a lot of kind of back pain, where you've had, surgery on your abdominals. That can be a bit stiff and a bit sore. And for me, I kind of knew what it was, so I can train around it or know what's normal and what's not. Whereas other people, quite rightly so, don't understand. So always better to play it safe than
Yeah.
kind of pushing through something they're not sure about. So I think that was a benefit. My wife would probably say I pushed it too hard sometimes and I was a bit tired, but I physically felt fine, which was always a good thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms
Mm.
of your motivation for doing the kind of Arctic run, and I suppose if you have any plans for any other endurance events or anything the like in the future, I know you said that you are quite task orientated, you like to set yourself a goal, but was there a wider motivation to almost show what's able to be achieved after surgery, or to perhaps inspire other ostomates? Was there kind of anything else going on from a motivation perspective?
Yeah, both actually. So you said that intrinsic motivation which I had, which was I haven't been able to do something for 10 years and now I really want to do it. And I think that as humans, the analogy alluded to earlier, where, when you see someone that's, is not doing something they almost should be able to, is a bit sad, really. And that was kind
Yeah.
of my intrinsic motivation of I want to be able to use my body how it's intended to be, whether that's running, walking, climbing, jumping, sprinting, doing somersaults. How many people are there who have, when was the last time that, an average person on the street sprinted as quick as they could or did a handstand or did a somersault? People don't do that. And that's kind of really what we should be doing. So that's part of it. And that was the first part, in just, I want to be able to do normal stuff. And the second part of it was exactly that. When I was doing the research, looking for people in my situation that had been through anything similar, there are not many people that were out there running great distances or doing big swims or whatever it was. And I kind of thought that's what I want to do. And that's the reason I did an Instagram post and a Twitter post that kind of was hugely popular of, I've just done this and I had this surgery. And because exactly that, I wanted people like myself who are maybe on the fence or not sure what they could do to reach out and say, I didn't know that was possible. And there are people doing far, far more impressive stuff than me. And, I only know this now kind of after and joining the community and seeing people like Sarah Russell. I don't know if you've interviewed her, but she's running
Mhm.
multi-day stage ultra marathons across Scotland and Cape Wrath Ultra. And I
Wow.
reached out to her and she did she's a phenomenal athlete doing stuff. So there are some amazing people out there, but they are few and far between. There's Caroline Bramwell, who
Yes.
is doing 70.3 Ironmans. There are some amazing people, but unless we put ourselves out there to kind of raise awareness and doing chats like this, it's hard to really hard to find people like like that, I guess. So that was my second motivation. I think that Twitter post I did, I think had 250,000 people viewed that. So it's a
Wow.
huge amount of people. So if that means that three people, do something about it, that's brilliant. And people message me and were like, I've never known anyone that's running, or I haven't had surgery because I didn't know that you could run after surgery. Or so I've had some really interesting conversations with other people who have reached out from a chat reached out literally a week ago just by searching ostomy or whatever it was on Twitter. And he found my post and said, I've just seen your post. I didn't know that you could do sport and activity after having the surgery. He said, I've
Oh,
just been recommended it. I think he's in Texas or somewhere like that, or New Mexico in America. And yeah, and I thought that's so cool to have that, platform, I guess.
yeah, that's really powerful that you're being contacted by people all over the
Mm,
world who feel like their life might be over after the surgery, and actually,
yeah,
from your perspective, it's probably just begun in many
it's
ways.
the opposite. Exactly that. It is the opposite of like it's a new life to a degree.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I feel like the sharing of experiences is something that I think the ostomy community lacked for a really long time. Things kind of didn't catch up as quickly as they may have done kind of for other people and other things.
Mm,
And there's been kind of a rise in sort of social media ostomy influencers and people just wanting to connect with other people and
yeah,
show what like the not just the positives of the experience, which I think is important.
yeah,
There's a lot of balance in there, but to show what you are capable of and what can be achieved afterwards. So yeah,
yeah.
thank you for telling your story. I think it will
No
help so
worries.
many others.
That's brilliant. I think that's exactly it. It's a lot of positives, but also personally, I'm very lucky. I haven't had many negatives, if any, really. And I know that I'm in a smaller group of that again, because I know most people might have a difficult day, but I'm very lucky that I haven't, and I can only really see the positives. But if there are any negatives now for me personally, the positives will outweigh that. So, and that's the way you think of it now. And if you look at where you were and look at where you are, that for me is enough to go, okay, cool. It's not actually that bad. I can leave the house. I think I'll be all right.
And you mentioned that you did some research before your surgery.
Mm.
Where did you turn to for useful help and advice, either before or kind of as you were having your surgery, or perhaps afterwards as well, that other people might find useful?
First one was probably YouTube. I remember searching for some stuff on YouTube, see if there's anyone out there, and I found a chap from Australia that was doing Tough Mudder type events with a stoma, and I reached out to him. This is quite a while ago when surgery was very first mentioned, probably
Mhm.
2015, 2016, and I remember him saying, "Oh yeah, I do lots of Tough Mudder stuff," and I've almost, I think his channel was I do Tough Mudders and I also have a stoma. It wasn't like I do Tough Mudders with a stoma. It was kind of
Nice.
that was just an aside. So I think it was a secondary notice. I kind of thought, actually, he's got a stoma. That's interesting. Instagram was another one. Mr. Crohn's colitis is, kind of one of the biggest people out there, if not the biggest. He was one of them. Caroline Bramwell, who's the other person. I think I saw her story on Facebook, and she had a book about, I think it's called Lou Rolls to Lycra, and it's about yeah, she was exactly the same as me and went for a full surgery and ended up doing a
Yeah.
70.3 Ironman. So she's done some pretty phenomenal stuff. So I think that's kind of where I looked, but it was mainly social media and stuff. And did I do any? I think that was about it really. I didn't know anyone personally. I didn't reach out to anyone personally. The way that medical departments I found were ran was it was kind of confidentiality reasons they can't obviously give you other patient details, but
Yeah.
my a lot of people don't really want to entertain the idea of surgery. So I think a lot of, from my experience, the nurses and the doctors will kind of tiptoe around that to some degree. And it's not until you're kind of at the end of the line they'll mention, have you considered surgery? Or, has anyone mentioned surgery? When actually maybe earlier doors we should be teeing people up, knowing that 50 to 60% of UC patients will have some form of surgery at some point. So maybe we should be teeing people up a little bit earlier to know what to expect or know what's kind of in the future. And then maybe patient advocates, because, we always have the gastroenterology side and then we have the stoma care side, and they're a little bit disjointed where, in my personal experience, I think maybe together, if someone said to me, would you like to have a chat with the stoma nurses, or would you like to have a chat with a stoma patient? Maybe I would have said yes. I don't know. Hindsight, yes, I would. But maybe at the time I also would have said, I'm not ready. And maybe this is something that they've already tried and it hasn't been successful. I don't know. But that was just my own personal experience.
Yeah, we've had similar thoughts here as well. The kind of that peer-to-peer knowledge and understanding and sharing of experience, I think, is invaluable. Whilst nurses are incredible and the consultants do an amazing job, I guess hearing from someone that's experienced it is always going to be a bit different.
Yeah, and just on that, I've got nothing higher to speak of my consultant. Technically I ended up having surgery, but I'd tell everyone to go and see my consultant at Gloucester. He was brilliant. So and I said the nurses are pretty incredible.
I wonder if I might ask about your son. Did you say he was 3?
He's 3 now, yes, and I've got the second child on the way in October.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
So, does your son know about your stoma? Have you talked to him about it? And if so, do you have any kind of tips for that for other people?
I actually don't know. Obviously he knew I was in hospital because he came and visited me. I think at the stage now he doesn't understand, so he doesn't know the kind of physicalities of it. Poo's pretty funny to him, so you can't really talk about poo without him thinking it's hilarious. For as far as he's concerned, I've got a plaster, and that's the way I put it. So because I was like, be careful when I came out of hospital. Be careful climbing on Daddy. He can't pick you up. Be careful of Daddy's plaster on his tummy. That's the way we did it. And then that's still what we use now. So he says, Daddy's got a plaster on his tummy. And that's kind of the only way that we've really touched on it. Obviously, when he's older, he's going to understand it. But I think for now, I think he's a little bit young. I think if he was 5 or so, I think he would probably understand a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at the moment, he's just, when he was actually 2.5 when he was 2 when I had surgery. So, way too young to actually know. So I think that, if you ask him now, he doesn't remember that I was in hospital. He has no recollection of that. So we just use that. Yeah, Daddy's got a plaster on his tummy. Just don't jump on his stomach. And that's kind of it, really. But no, he hasn't really. He's been in the bathroom when I've kind of gone to the toilet, should we say, and he hasn't even noticed. So he doesn't really. He's not at that level of intellect yet, but it won't be long, and I'll probably cross that bridge when we come to it. But I'm very open. I'm not going to hide away anything from him, really. So it's just when the time is right.
We briefly touched upon this before we pushed record, but you have your own podcast, and I wondered if you could tell me a bit about it and why you came to start it and how it is.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. We have a podcast called the Back Pain and Injury Podcast, and it's myself and a colleague who, during lockdown, were fed up of basically a lot of the misinformation and nonsense that is kind of out there in the musculoskeletal community. So we started a patient-facing podcast, which was initially about back pain, and then we expanded it to all sorts of topics, from plantar fasciitis to shoulder pain to knee pain to all sorts of stuff. And we launched it during lockdown, and it's been a pretty incredible journey, actually. So kind of, over 3 years, we've had over 1 million downloads. We've been on Radio 4 multiple times as one of their podcasts of the month. We've been on lots of local radio stations, being interviewed on various bits from posture to back pain, and it's been really fun. We have a series of experts come on and talk around their particular topic. That might be a type of surgery, it might be a type of condition, and we post that out to a patient-facing audience. So everything's geared at as if I was talking to Mrs. Smith in front of me. We're not using medical jargon, and it's been fantastic. Yeah, really, really good, and it's something I really enjoy still doing now.
Congratulations, that's incredible. 1 million downloads.
Thank you. Yes, it's been great fun.
So cool. Oh, I think it's so great when you turn your passion into something, again, that helps other people. Seems to be something that you like to do, but we appreciate
I think that's it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good fun.
Do you have any other kind of endurance events or any other wild things on the horizon?
I actually just did one, so I did another one last weekend.
Oh, nice.
I only booked it last minute, and I did it. It was actually another 43 miler, but in the Cotswolds. And I think I'm actually wearing the jumper from the event I did. I bought the jumper at the end, but I did it in, yeah, so kind of 2 weekends ago. Sorry, it was a signed up last minute 43 miler around the Cotswolds where I live, and yeah, lots of not quite as much climbing as Norway, but not far off. And
Oh my
I mean, to
gosh.
put perspective, Norway 43 miles I did in 13 hours, I think it took. This one was the same distance, but it took me like 9. So it
Oh
was
wow.
significantly easier compared to the other one. I wasn't quite as knocked out by the end of it. But yeah, it was a great, good event. And I just, I think that's the only one I've got coming. I think baby due in October, that's my next marathon. So I think that's
Yes.
probably hard enough. I mean, far harder for my partner, but I think that's the next marathon challenge I've got. But I wanted to do another one just before the baby came, and that was the closest one to
Of
me, and it was
course.
only half an hour by my house. So I did that one. Besides that, I don't have anything planned as such. I thought get baby out of the way. I'd love to do an Ironman next year as a
Wow.
goal. So I've got a Peloton. So I'm just kind of spinning away on the Peloton to kind of do stuff, and I'm still running and going out for runs, but I actually haven't entered anything yet. And obviously coming up to winter, it gets a bit colder, it gets a bit
Yeah.
darker. It means running is not very nice most of the time. So I'll try and keep it to the summer. So I'll do indoor training and then gear up for next summer and try and do something big and fun again. But I'm not quite sure what yet.
I can't wait to watch you do the Iron Man. You have to send us a video afterwards.
I will
We'd
do.
love to
Yeah, that'd
have
be great.
it.
Yeah,
I wondered if I could ask you just two more questions. The
of
first
course.
is around, I guess you toyed with the idea and went back and forth in terms of having surgery. This is something we get asked all the time. So many people contact us asking for experience and advice for people that have been in this situation. What would you say to somebody who is really suffering with IBD, whether that is Crohn's or colitis, and they are too scared to go through surgery at the moment? What might be the steps they might take to become more comfortable with the idea, or potentially just what would your advice be and from your experience?
I think the first thing is it's very easy to think of what if it went wrong. And that's the kind of what if everything was worse afterwards? What if I can't do that? What if I can't do this? And that's a very easy mindset to put yourself into. The mindset which you can kind of flip on its head is to think of what if everything was better? And you don't really think of the positive sides of it. It's very easy to think about those negatives. And where I was and where a lot of people are is it's not exactly like you're living a positive situation right now. So it's very easy. You kind of normalize something that's not very good. For me, not leaving the house before 12 o'clock and, not really having energy and being tired all the time and being a bit grumpy about it was my norm. So getting outside of the norm is always challenging. And I could have very easily said, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? But actually, it wouldn't really have changed my day to day life. I might have just had some other difficulties, but it was pretty shit anyway.
Yeah.
So actually, if I flip it on its head, I think, what if the opposite was going to happen? And what if it was in the situation like I am in now? If I knew where I am now 10 years ago, as I said, I would have had the operation ages ago. So I
Yeah.
think thinking of the positive possibilities is what's really useful. As I said, I flip flop back and forward. Again, thinking of this, and it wasn't until my wife said, you have to think of if anything did go wrong, it was the best decision for you at the time, and it was, because there's no point trying to regret. Regret doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
It's a scary time. Try not to borrow worry from another day. So there's no point worrying about something until it happens. People talk about, what if there's leaks and what if there's, pain post surgery and what if there's all these type of problems. They're the kind of worst case scenarios, and a lot of the forums and Facebook groups, things like that, are full of people who are often having a worse experience because they're there reaching out for help. The people that are running around Norway, running around marathons and running around the world, what I'm talking about, and doing events, aren't usually sat there talking about the problems that they have. They're usually sharing
Yeah.
positive experience. So there's always going to be an inherent bias towards the negative outcomes in a support group. And that's the same for any condition, whether you've got back pain or plantar fasciitis. There's going to be Facebook groups full of people who are struggling, not the people who are actually better. And then the last thing is reaching out to people. So reaching out to people that have had the surgery, reaching out to people, whether that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There are a lot of positive stories still in those support groups. So posting stories on there and asking any questions. And you'll see people post a simple question and there'll be hundreds of answers underneath of, supportive messages and people offering advice. So I think there's an ileostomy and stoma support group UK on Facebook, and there's so much good information on there from people that have probably had exactly the same thoughts, exactly the same worries, exactly the same problems, and they're there to help you. I know I've posted my name on there, posted on there and said, feel free to message me if there's any questions. I've been through the same process, and I've had conversations with numerous people who are worried about a particular aspect, whether that was, kind of home life, whether it was family life, whether it was sports activities, surgical issues. I've done what I can for a handful of people who have reached out, and there are obviously so many people in exactly the same boat. So find someone who's been through it and have a chat to them.
Thank you. That was so helpful. I'm actually going to leave it there because I think that's a beautiful note to finish on. Some really, really helpful advice. Thank you so much for coming on. I found this whole conversation so inspiring. The things that you've set your mind to and achieved. Well, I need to be doing more of that, I think. It's made me feel like I'm not setting myself enough challenges. But I think it's really motivating and inspiring for the community. And as I said before, thank you for sharing your story and being so open about it.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope one person listens to it and, contacts me or decides to make a decision and ends up doing something amazing because of it.
Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.